Year 9 project. Year 1, week 3. Survival depends upon location. Welcome back. My name is Shepard. At this point, you understand that collapse is coming and you have 9 years to prepare. Last week I told you that you can't make it alone, and survival depends upon finding your tribe. But it's imperative to understand that a tribe can't survive for long if they are in the wrong location. Where you are matters, and the wrong location could just be a death trap. You're scared, maybe not full panic, not yet, but there's this gnawing feeling that where you are right now might not be where you need to be when things fall apart. You're looking at your kids, your neighborhood, your city, and you're wondering, can we survive here? I get it. I've been there. That sick feeling in your gut when you realize the place where you've built your life might become a trap. Here's what I know. Most people are going to wait too long. They'll hesitate. They'll hope things work out. And when collapse comes, they'll be desperate, displaced, and out of options. But you're here. You're asking the right questions, and that means you still have time to make a choice that could save your family's life. Here's the problem nobody wants to face. Your location is only viable because of systems that are going to fail. Phoenix is habitable because of massive water infrastructure and air conditioning. Manhattan works because trucks bring in food and fuel every single day. Houston survives summer because the grid keeps running. But when systems collapse, and they will, those artificial life support systems disappear. No more trucking water into the desert. No more shipping food to cities. No more air conditioning when the grid fails during a heat dome. And here's what makes this terrifying. You can't just learn your way out of bad geography. You can study water purification until you're an expert, but if there's no water to purify, your knowledge means nothing. Skills matter. We'll talk about those in future broadcasts, but skills are built on a foundation, and that foundation is location. Unlike skills, which you can learn anywhere, location takes time and resources to change. And here's what should keep you up at night. You have maybe 3 to 5 years to relocate if you need to. After that, property prices in viable locations will skyrocket as more people wake up. Migration will increase, and when collapse actually hits, moving becomes exponentially harder and more dangerous. I know what some of you are thinking. I'll just bug out when things get bad. I'll have a go bag ready. Yeah, you and 10 million other people. Hope you like being stuck in traffic while fuel runs out and desperation sets in. The time to move is now, while it's boring, while it's inconvenient, while your friends think you're overreacting. That's the problem. Now let me show you the solution. I've spent years analyzing what makes locations viable post-collapse, and I've distilled it down to a framework: the 7 pillars of survival geography. Think of it as a diagnostic test for your location. 7 critical factors, each one weighted by importance. Score yourself honestly and you'll know exactly where you stand. This isn't guesswork, it's not a feeling. It's a systematic way to answer the question that's been eating at you. Should we stay or should we go? I'm going to walk you through each pillar. I'll tell you what to look for, how to score it, and what the numbers mean. By the end of this broadcast, you'll know whether you're in a viable location or whether you need to start planning your exit. And here's the beautiful part. You still have time to make this choice deliberately, not in a panic, not as a refugee, but as someone who saw what was coming and made a decision. Let's break it down. Pillar 1, water security. 25% of your score. First and most critical, water. Without water, you have 3 days. That's it. Everything else is secondary. Here's what you're looking for. Renewable water sources that don't depend on infrastructure. Not a well that taps a depleting aquifer. Ideally, we're talking about springs, perennial streams, rivers, lakes. Water that flows and refills naturally. A good well can suffice, but keep in mind that if you need electricity to pump your water, you must have a power source that doesn't depend on the grid. The question you need to answer: if every piece of modern infrastructure disappeared tomorrow, could you access clean water within walking distance? If the answer is no, you're in the wrong place. And don't fool yourself about rainfall. Oh, we get 40 inches a year. Great. What about drought years? Because those are coming more frequently. I weight water at 25% of your total location score because it's that critical. You can adapt to almost anything else, but you cannot adapt to not having water. Pillar 2, food production potential, 20% of your score. Can you grow food? I'm not talking about a backyard garden that supplements your grocery runs. I'm talking about feeding yourself and your tribe entirely from local production when the trucks stop coming. That requires adequate frost-free days for growing, decent soil that doesn't need to be trucked in, enough rain during the growing season, land that's not contaminated by industrial pollution. And here's what most people miss: climate stability. Your growing zone today might not be your growing zone in 2035. If your area is shifting by 2 or 3 zones, your current crops won't survive. You also need diversity: crops, livestock, wild game, foraging. Because when one system fails, and something will fail, you need backups. Food production is 20% of your score. Because you can have all the water in the world, but if you can't grow food, you starve. Pillar 3, climate viability, 15% of your score. Can you survive the climate without modern technology? This is where a lot of desirable locations fall apart. Arizona, beautiful in winter, lethal in summer without air conditioning. Minnesota, great growing season, uninhabitable in winter without heat. You need places where human beings can survive year-round without massive energy inputs. Mild winters, summers that don't kill you, precipitation that's reliable but not catastrophic. And remember, we're not planning for today's climate. We're planning for 2035's climate. Hotter, more extreme, more unpredictable. Ask yourself, is your location getting better or worse? That's 15% of your score. Pillar 4, population density and migration pressure. 15% of your score. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. People. In collapse, people are both your greatest resource and your greatest threat. You need community. But you also need to be realistic about population density. Urban and suburban areas, unsustainable. The population far exceeds local carrying capacity. When supply chains break, cities become death traps. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about where you are, it's about what's upwind of you, what's upstream. Who's going to be fleeing toward your location when their location becomes uninhabitable? Are you on a migration route from the coast, from the desert southwest, from the heat belt cities that will see wet bulb temperatures that kill in hours? I know that sounds harsh, but in collapse, resources get stretched thin fast. Your ability to defend what you have, or your tribe's ability to absorb refugees, is finite. Pillar 5, defensibility. 10% of your score. Can you defend it? I'm not talking about building a fortress. I'm talking about basic security, natural barriers, mountains, rivers, limited access points, distance from major conflict zones. Not being on critical infrastructure routes that make you a target. This is a balance. You need some isolation, but you also need accessibility. Too remote, and you can't get supplies pre-collapse. Too accessible, and you're on everyone's evacuation route. 10% of your score. Pillar 6, energy independence. 10% of your score. When the grid fails, can you generate power? Solar and wind potential. Micro hydro if you have flowing water and elevation. Wood for heating and biomass. You don't need to live like it's the 1800s, but you do need the ability to meet basic needs without fossil fuels and without a functioning electrical grid. Can you pump water, preserve food, heat your home in winter? These aren't luxuries, they're survival requirements. 10%. Pillar 7, resource diversity, 5% of your score. And finally, do you have access to diverse resources? Building materials, tool-making materials, medicinal plants, a community with diverse skills. This is your resilience factor. When one thing fails, do you have alternatives? 5%. It's the smallest weight, but it's often the difference between thriving and just surviving. Now, some locations score well on paper, but have what I call absolute disqualifiers. Red flags that override the numbers. Listen carefully. These are non-negotiable. Sea level rise zones. If you're below 10 feet elevation on the coast, I don't care how perfect everything else is, you're going underwater. Maybe not this year. Maybe not in 5 years, but it's coming. Downstream of major dams. When maintenance fails, those things don't fail gracefully. They fail catastrophically. Major nuclear facilities within 50 miles. In a grid collapse, cooling systems fail. You do the math. Major cities within 50 miles. The refugee pressure alone makes these locations untenable. Extreme heat zones. If your area is projected to hit wet bulb temperatures above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, you cannot survive without air conditioning. Period. That's not an opinion. That's physics. I know some of you are sitting in these exact locations right now, feeling that pit in your stomach. Good, that's the wake-up call. You have time to move. Use it. Here's what you do next. Step 1, take your current location or any location you're considering and score it honestly on all 7 pillars, 1 to 10 for each category. Step 2, weight those scores using the percentages I gave you. 25% for water, 20% for food production, and so on. Step 3, look at your total score and be honest about what it means. Above 7 out of 10? You're in good shape. Address your weak points, but you can stay. 5 to 7? Viable, but you have work to do. Maybe you can improve your situation. Maybe you need to relocate. Below 5? You're in a high-risk location. Start planning your exit. Below 3? Get out. I'm serious. That location will not support human life in collapse. I've put together a detailed framework, all 7 pillars, detailed scoring criteria, red flags, and a worksheet you can fill out. It's available now. Download it, use it, share it with your family. Do this assessment this week, not next month, not when you have time. This week. Because every week you delay is a week closer to the point where relocating becomes exponentially harder. Let me paint you 2 pictures. Picture 1, success. You do the assessment. You realize you need to move. It's hard. It's expensive. Your friends think you're crazy. Your kids complain about leaving their school, but you do it anyway. You find a location with good water, viable agriculture, reasonable climate. You get there in year 2 or 3. You spend the next 6 years building relationships, learning the land, establishing your family in a community that can actually survive what's coming. And when collapse hits, you're not in panic mode. You're not a refugee. You're exactly where you need to be with people you trust in a place that can sustain life. Picture 2, failure. You stay where you are, you tell yourself it'll be fine. You focus on stockpiling supplies instead of changing your foundation. You think you can tough it out. Then collapse comes. The water stops flowing. The food trucks stop coming. The sewer backs up. The heat becomes unbearable. And suddenly you're trying to evacuate with millions of other people who made the same mistake. You're competing for resources, competing for fuel, competing for space in locations that might have taken you in years ago but are now overwhelmed. If you're lucky, you become a refugee. If you're not lucky, well, I know which future I'm choosing for my family. Here's the hard truth nobody wants to hear. Most of you are in the wrong place. You're in cities because that's where the jobs are. You're in suburbs because that's what you could afford. You're in places you never chose based on survival criteria because, until now, survival wasn't the priority. And that's fine. That was rational. But the parameters have changed. You have 9 years. That's 3 to 5 years to relocate if you need to, and another 4 to 6 years to build resilience in your new location. Can you do it? Yes. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. Will it be expensive, disruptive, and socially awkward? Oh, you bet. The alternative, you stay in an unsustainable location and hope for the best. But when collapse comes, hope is not a strategy. Geography is destiny, and destiny is something you still have time to choose. In the next broadcast, we'll talk about how you build your initial team, a team that will grow into a tribe. Because even if you find the perfect location, you can't survive alone. But first things first, assess where you are. Be honest. Be brutal. And if you need to move, start planning now. My name is Shepard. You have 9 years. Make them count. Stay awake, stay alive, and I'll talk to you in the next transmission.